Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling something pretty much every single one of us struggles with at some point: digital distraction. But listen, we're looking at this through a completely different lens today. Absolutely no guilt here, and definitely no shaming you for your screen time. Instead, we're going to explore how to actually outsmart your devices using strategic environmental design. You can kind of think of this as your tactical guide to taking back your time, your focus, and honestly, your peace of mind.
Be honest with me for a second. Have you ever felt that phantom phone buzz in a pocket where your phone isn't even sitting? Or what about that automatic, reflexive pull to refresh motion? You know the one, that quick swipe down with your thumb that feels kind of eerily similar to pulling the lever on a casino slot machine, right? Well, if you've experienced this, you need to know right off the bat that these are absolutely not personal failures. Seriously. They are basically the scars of an invisible war. Those phantom vibrations? They happen because our nervous systems have literally been rewired to anticipate digital input. These are just the micro-surrenders we make every single day to an environment that was literally designed to exploit the very architecture of our brains.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this is exactly where we need to completely reframe the problem. The attention economy is a rigged game. Right now, as we speak, your internal grit and personal willpower are being pitted directly against multi-billion-dollar algorithms. And these aren't just, accidents of code. These systems are honed by top-tier cognitive psychologists and purposely built to hijack your dopamine and just harvest your focus. So to win, you have to stop fighting a losing battle of willpower and start entirely redesigning the theater of war. It's a totally unfair fight, and simply recognizing that is step one.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to start with the willpower myth. Then we'll look at designing structural friction, followed by the low information diet. After that, we dive into reclaiming cognitive integrity, and finally, anchoring the analog life.
Let's kick things off with part one, the willpower myth.
We so often beat ourselves up, calling ourselves lazy when we fall into, say, a 3-hour scrolling black hole. But relying on willpower, it's a losing battle from the start. Willpower is a finite, highly unreliable resource. If you're relying on it to fight off constant digital temptation, it's going to deplete. You lose because of the attention economy. This is a systemic environment where multi-billion-dollar platforms compete fiercely for one thing: human focus. Their absolute goal is maximum time on platform, and it comes at the direct expense of your autonomy. The whole central premise of this economy is actually super simple. If a service is free, well, your attention is the product being monetized and sold to advertisers.
Now, neurologically speaking, the threshold for a mindless habit is just 2 seconds. Think about that for a moment. 2 seconds. Have you ever unlocked your phone just to quickly check the weather, and suddenly you find yourself 20 minutes deep into a social media feed, completely unaware of how you even got there? It happens to all of us. If an action takes less than 2 seconds to execute, it completely bypasses your prefrontal cortex. That's the decision-making part of your brain. It just becomes an automatic mindless habit. And this is exactly why we have to physically break the loop. If we can just make a habit take a little longer than 2 seconds, we actually give our conscious brain a fighting chance to wake up and say, wait, do I really want to do this?
That brings us nicely to section 2, designing structural friction.
So the crucial point is that friction is not an annoyance. It's a deliberate architectural tool. What we're doing here is introducing aggressive structural friction to make unwanted habits physically and neurologically difficult to execute. Think of it kind of like trying to eat healthier, right? It's way easier to just keep the junk food out of your house entirely than it is to stare at a plate of fresh cookies on your kitchen counter all day and try to resist them. Same idea here. We're designing an environment where deep focus is the default and distraction is, frankly, a massive pain to access.
So how do we actually do this? Well, by embracing what we call ugly design. Your phone's interface is literally a masterpiece of persuasive design. It uses these vibrant, beautiful colors to trigger neurological rewards. So, strip that away. Switch your phone to grayscale mode. Why does this work? Because it immediately neutralizes those bright dopamine-triggering red notification badges. Suddenly, your phone looks like what it is, a utilitarian tool, not a pocket casino. Next up, execute a massive notification purge. Just nuke every single ping that isn't an actual human being trying to reach you in real time. Then, eliminate the entry points. Delete those social media apps from your phone entirely. Make yourself use a clunky browser login. And honestly, that clunky login is exactly what buys you those crucial 2 seconds we talked about just a minute ago. These are the tactics that take you from being a reactive product back to being an intentional user.
But of course, the urge to check your phone will still hit. When it does, you can lean on the DEADS method. This is a really practical, actionable framework to build up your refusal skills. Let's say the urge hits right while you're trying to focus on work. First, you can delay the urge by just counting to 10. Or you can escape the triggering environment, literally just walk out of the room for a second. You can avoid or accept the feeling, acknowledging it's there without actually opening the app. You can distract yourself, maybe get up and grab a glass of water. Or finally, substitute the phone entirely with something else, like a physical book. The whole point is to recognize and break those compulsive behavioral loops before they completely steal your afternoon.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the risk we take if we ignore these practices. Failing to set attention boundaries doesn't just mean you get a little bit distracted at work. It actively invites chronic anxiety and this constant state of low-level panic. Ignoring your refusal skills, that leads directly to endless doom scrolling and a pretty severe loss of personal autonomy. So we really aren't just talking about cute productivity hacks here. Adopting these practices is absolutely vital for maintaining our mental health and our cognitive independence in what is a very, very noisy world.
Moving right along to Section 3, the low information diet.
And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between how we usually consume info and how we probably should. It's so easy to fall into digital foraging. That's that frantic, endless search for novelty and breaking news. It gives us this kind of shallow, synthetic expertise. Like we know a tiny, tiny bit about everything, but we don't understand anything deeply. And it leaves us highly anxious. Now, compare that to cognitive synthesis. This is the stable, lasting depth you get from long-form books and asynchronous reading. We so often mistake being hyper-informed with being completely overwhelmed, and we desperately need to shift our habits towards synthesis.
To get there, we need to build strategies for high-quality consumption, and the absolute biggest one is asynchronous consumption. Basically, never read or watch content in the same feed where you discovered it. Send it to a Read Later app instead. That one move completely severs the instant gratification loop. You should also try shifting your production timeline. Prioritize media that takes a long time to produce. Swap the frantic hour-by-hour breaking news for, say, a thoroughly researched book. Use RSS feeds or newsletters so you consume content strictly on your own terms, not on algorithms. And finally, try implementing a 24-hour rule on hot takes. Why? Well, because hot takes on social media are usually emotionally manipulative. They're designed specifically for outrage. Waiting 24 hours just lets the dust settle, allowing the actual facts to separate from the frenzy.
Next up is Section 4, Reclaiming Cognitive Integrity.
Boredom is a skill. Let that sink in for a second. Boredom is actually a skill. The attention economy doesn't just fragment our focus. It actively monetizes our modern intolerance for empty space. It's conditioned us to literally fear the slightest gap in stimulation. Think about it. Standing in line at the grocery store used to be a time for daydreaming or people watching or just letting your mind wander for a minute. Now, it's an immediate, almost panicked trigger for frantic scrolling. But here's the thing. Boredom is not a void to be filled. It's a functional requirement for the human spirit. It is the absolute baseline prerequisite for reflection, for creativity, and for having original thoughts. So we have to actively retrain our brains to protect our deep work. How? First, try setting scheduled blocks of 90 to 120 minutes of totally distraction-free concentration. Then, intentionally build a do-nothing buffer into your day. Literally practice the skill of boredom. Go sit on your porch without your phone. Take a walk around the block without a podcast playing in your ears. And try practicing attention surfing. When the urge to check a device hits you, just pause for 90 seconds. And let me be totally clear with you, sitting with that urge for 90 seconds, it's going to feel incredibly uncomfortable at first. Your brain will be screaming at you to just check the screen. But simply observing that sensation without acting on it builds incredible meta-awareness. That discomfort you feel, that is the exact feeling of regaining your cognitive independence.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, Anchoring the Analog Life.
Listen, you cannot successfully quit a digital vice if you just leave a massive vacuum in its place. Your brain absolutely abhors a void. If you just take away the phone, you're just going to sit there staring at the wall feeling incredibly anxious. We have to purposefully fill that space with tangible, real-world activities. We call these offline anchors. I'm talking about analog reorientation through hands-on hobbies, like cooking, physical writing, gardening, or woodworking. And why these specific activities? Because they require physical, spatial awareness, and crucially, they have zero optimization loop. There's no algorithm tracking your gardening speed, right? They naturally resist being captured by tech. Combine these activities with a digital Sabbath, meaning take one full day a week entirely screen-free to recalibrate your dopamine sensitivity and really ground yourself back in the physical world.
Because here is the real truth. Consumption feels stimulating. Sure, but creation feels meaningful. By investing your time in a life that's rich with offline, physical practice, the alert of the screen just starts to naturally fade away on its own. A life spent making things, growing things, or building things is just inherently more satisfying than a life spent merely reacting to whatever other people happen to be posting online. When you reclaim your attention, you're actually giving yourself the space to create.
But how do we actually sustain this long term? The secret is through daily rituals that form a realistic system. Avoid those extreme digital detox cycles, okay? They're exhausting and they almost never last. Instead, establish a realistic baseline. Try implementing a morning and evening buffer, no screens for 1 hour before you go to sleep and 1 hour after you wake up. Then try batching. Check your messages maybe 2 or 3 times a day instead of keeping that inbox open constantly in the background. And practice intentional input. Make a conscious decision about what you are going to consume before you even unlock your phone. Have a game plan so you don't just end up mindlessly grazing through feeds simply because the screen happens to be glowing.
Now, zooming out a bit, let's move to how this builds over time. You can really sustain these daily habits through weekly and monthly audits. Use your phone's screen time tracker, but not as a tool for guilt. Use it as a compass to honestly review whether your digital patterns are actually reflecting your personal values. Are you really spending your time where you want to be spending it? And periodically, try doing a monthly reset. Take a 30-day break from optional technologies just to intentionally rediscover your offline interests. See what you genuinely miss versus what you were just doing purely out of habit.
Ultimately, making the shift to digital minimalism is really a shift in your identity. It's that pivotal moment when you stop being a product to be harvested and you start being a deliberate user of your tools again. Your habits aren't just ways to pass the time, they are the ultimate architects of your character. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today. What is your current digital habit training your mind to become? Really think about it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.